Source: history. For centuries, if Europe wanted the wealth of the East, it had to deal with the world in between: spices, silk, gold, diplomacy, armies, merchants. So much of the old world moved through the lands controlled, taxed, or threatened by the Ottoman Empire. That was Ottoman power. Not just soldiers, not just palaces, not just Istanbul. Power came from position. The empire stood between worlds, and when you stand between worlds, everyone has to pass through you. Until one day, they stop asking for permission. Portugal sailed around Africa. Spain crossed the Atlantic. European powers began searching for sea routes that did not depend on the old roads through the Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. This was not just an age of discovery, it was a global rerouting. The Ottoman Empire did not collapse because of one battle, one bad sultan, or one fatal mistake. Part of the problem was colder. The world found another route. Hi everyone, I am Patience. Today I want to look at the Ottoman Empire not only as an empire, but as a system that once stood at the center of the old world. And the question for this episode is simple. What happens when the whole world starts taking another road? When we talk about the Ottoman Empire, we usually think about armies, sultans, janissaries, and the year 1453, when Constantinople fell. But to understand why the Ottoman Empire became so powerful, we have to look at the map. Istanbul connected Europe and Asia. Anatolia was a land bridge. The Balkans opened a path into Europe. The Near East connected to older trade routes. North Africa and the Eastern Mediterranean gave the Ottomans access to important maritime spaces. If you look at it with military eyes, this was an empire. If you look at it as a system, it was a transit point. Goods passed through, taxes passed through, news passed through, envoys passed through, armies passed through, and of course, money passed through, because no empire ever forgets to turn on monetization. The Ottomans did not need to control everything in the world. They only needed to control enough points that other people had to pass through. Put simply, if the most important road runs through your house, you have power. If people find another road, that power begins to decline. Trade between East and West was not just shopping. It was the economy of an entire era. Spices were luxury goods. Silk was a symbol of status. Gold, silver, weapons, political news, knowledge, and maritime technology all formed a huge network. But that network was not free. Every land it crossed could collect fees. Every war could make the route more dangerous. Every empire that controlled a key point could make the rest of the world uncomfortable. The Ottoman Empire was not the only reason Europe searched for new sea routes. History is rarely that simple. There was better navigation technology. There was competition between European kingdoms. There was religious ambition. There was the hunger for gold and silver. There was an obsession with spices and Eastern markets. But the Ottoman position inside the old system was a major part of the context. If the old route becomes too expensive, too risky, or too controlled, people will look for a new one. This is one of the coldest truths about systems. Users do not always revolt. Sometimes they simply switch to another option. No complaint, no argument, no feedback. They just leave. For a transit empire, that is a very dangerous signal. Portugal searched for a sea route around Africa toward the Indian Ocean. Spain bet on the Atlantic. Then came the Dutch, the English, the French, and other maritime powers. Step by step, the center of global trade began to move. From older routes through the Mediterranean and the Middle East, towards sea routes across the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. This does not mean the Ottoman Empire immediately became weak. It does not mean Istanbul suddenly lost all value. The Ottoman Empire survived for a long time after this. It reformed, fought, won, lost, adapted, and continued for centuries. But the world the Ottomans understood began turning into a different world. A world of ocean-going ships, trading companies, colonies, banks, gunboats, maritime empires, and later, industry. In that new world, the old Ottoman position was not as powerful as before. When there is only one main road, the one who controls that road is very strong. When there are many alternative roads, power spreads out. That is the cold logic of the map. Now we can bring back the technology metaphor. At its height, the Ottoman Empire was like a gateway. So much passed through it. It controlled routes, collected fees, created rules, and forced others to take it seriously. But when the world found a way around it, that gateway started to look like an old firewall, still strong, still high, still full of rules, still able to block. But the problem was this: users no longer needed to pass through it as much as before. That is why I like the word bypass for this episode. Not because Europe was smart and the Ottomans were stupid. It was not that simple. The Ottoman Empire was an intelligent system for the conditions it lived in. It knew how to expand from the frontier. It knew how to take Constantinople. It knew how to govern many religious and ethnic communities. It knew how to use geography to become a major power. But sometimes a system does not fail because it is bad. It fails because the environment around it changes faster than it can update. You do not need to break a gate if you can build another road. You do not need to defeat the gatekeeper if the whole map has changed. The Ottoman Empire is not only a story about an empire rising and declining. It is the story of a system that once stood at the center of the old world. For centuries it controlled routes, cities, frontiers, and trade points that other powers had to consider. But Europe did not only fight the Ottoman Empire. Europe went around it. And that bypass changed the global map of power. If this series continues, I want the next Ottoman episode to go inside the empire and look at the Janissaries, a military force that once helped the empire win, then slowly became an interest group too powerful to reform. In simpler terms, sometimes the thing that protects a system becomes the thing that prevents the system from updating. So here is the code review question for this episode. If a system is powerful because it is the mandatory road, how would you prepare for the day when other people find a way around it? Leave your answer below like a historical pull request. I am Patience. See you in the next commit. Status: route shift detected. Done.